Danvers Public Schools mission statement. The Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. Today's meeting is being broadcast on Danvers Community Access Television, and I don't believe anyone in our audience is recording. Arthur Skarmas is stuck in a bit of traffic, so he will be joining us shortly. But we're going to get started with items of interest to the superintendent.
Okay, thank you. Our first item, Keith, is recognition of crossing guards appreciation.
So the month of March was Crossing Guard Appreciation Month, so just an opportunity to say thank you to all of our hardworking crossing guards that are out there. Whitney McNeely in our office also was able to do a social media post. So a big thank you to our crossing guards.
Great. Thank you to all of them.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Items of interest from the school committee. Jeff?
Nothing.
I do have one actually, Mr. Chairman, and this, as all of us know certainly, and the town should know, is your last meeting, not only as chair, but as a member of the school committee, and Mary Beth's last meeting as a member of the school committee. I want to thank you for your service to this committee. I think it's been 15 years for you, Dick.
Well, let's not push things. 9.
And 6 for you, Mary Beth? 5. 5, okay. So just thank you so much for all you've done. Your leadership throughout this year, Dave, has well, it's been a tough year, and a steady hand really helped us get through all of this. And Mary Beth, the courage you have shown this year is an inspiration to almost anyone who knows you. Should be an inspiration to anybody. So the town would do well going forward to pick 2 new candidates or 2 new members who brought your desire to improve the school system and to work for the better of all the students. And I never saw either of you with any other agenda other than doing what's best for this district. So thank you for that. And I believe the superintendent has a little something for both of you.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. Just a small token of our appreciation, so you can continue to wear your Danvers pride.
Oh, thank you very
around
much.
town. Thank you.
Oh, that's very nice.
We better not see those on eBay anytime.
Got a pretty penny for those.
So thank you both. Thank you both
I
so much.
appreciate that very much. Thank you.
No.
Lisa.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Eric, for those kind words, and I want to thank my fellow members, Jeff, Dave, Arthur, and Eric, and the administration for all the support and the work we've done together. And it has been quite a ride this last year, but I do want to thank you all because I thoroughly enjoyed serving on this board with you and would do it again in a heartbeat. But thank you so much for everything.
Great, and I will echo those sentiments. I was going to save this for the end of the meeting, but thank you to all of you on the committee. Thanks to the others who are on the committee and have since left. I think I've learned a little bit from everyone involved. Certainly, thank you to the administration for all of the work you do to make this district run so well. It certainly has been a challenging year. It's been my intention all along not to seek re-election this year, as all of my children are out of the system now. So after 9 years, I felt it was time to let someone else take one of these seats, and 2 of these seats in the case of Mary Beth. But yeah, it's been a challenging year. I started on the school committee 9 years ago, and my first year was incredibly challenging with the horrible murder of one of our beloved teachers, and then ending my term here with a pandemic. So I bookended with 2 horrible things, but everything in between has been really, really interesting and enjoyable. I hope I've added a little bit to the committee and really appreciate being a part of it. So thank you to everyone in Danvers who gave me this opportunity. Anything else from anyone? All right. I don't see any members of our community here tonight, so I don't think we have any items of interest from them. I also do not see our student representative, but if he shows up later, we can certainly have him join us. So we'll move on to information from the superintendent.
Thank you. We'd also like to say thank you, and we greatly appreciate the partnership with our school committee, our collaboration together, and wish Mary Beth and Dave, the both of you, well, and look forward to continuing working with you as community members.
Great.
Things that we work on. For tonight's meeting, this afternoon's meeting, we have moved from our educating during a pandemic, and we'd like to go back to calling this our strategic plan, and sharing updates with our strategic plan. So that's what we'll begin tonight, and then we will have our COVID statistics update during the meeting. Again, also shifting from having a workshop at the beginning of the meeting to now being able to provide statistics during the meeting. And then we'll finish up with the information from the superintendent, with Keith sharing exciting progress with our Smith Elementary School for that opening. Okay, so we have our presentation up there, and thinking, Keith, would you like to start with thinking about the mitigation strategies and the management and operations that we began in opening up our schools to the full in-person?
So we are happy and excited to have everybody back. We do have our mitigation strategy still in place that we go over every month. We would like to stress the staying home when feeling ill. We have had a few students over the last few weeks, and what we hear from the Board of Health about the general environment around COVID and allergies is that people come to school or go to work when they're feeling ill because they have a runny nose, thinking that it's just seasonal allergies, and come to find out that they do have COVID, and that's just the symptoms that they're displaying, which has resulted in additional close contacts and quarantine. So to help control it, really to re-emphasize that piece. As we know, we came back on 3/29 with our elementary students in grades 4 to 5 and other families wishing to shift. And then on 4-5, our secondary, our middle school and high school students came back. At this point, we have approximately 92% of our students full in person with us, while 7.5% of the families remain in the full remote model. So this was a significant shift when we did our that last move for the year. We did have probably about 7.5% of our families choose to move from the full remote model to the full in person as we made that shift. We would like to just remind the community that we did make a conscious decision to have 3 feet of spacing in some classrooms to allow for this return, or less than 6. At this time, the CDC guidance and the Mass Department of Public Health through DESE remain in effect, that if you're within 6 feet of an individual for 15 minutes or more cumulative over the course of 24 hours, you are deemed a close contact. Through our information through the Department of Education, they are reviewing that with the CDC and the DPH, but at this point that stays into effect. So we have seen a slight uptick, and we anticipate that that uptick would stay in place for the number of close contacts that we have. We'll get into our statistics, but we still have not had any evidence of school-based spread, but we have had an increased number of close contacts. And again, if we go through our mitigation strategies, the mask, face covering, the physical distancing, hand washing and hand sanitizing, and staying home and sick. We kind of covered all of that in our last slide.
Mary?
Yes, so here's some pictures of our learning environments at the elementary level, kind of when we came back during the week of 3/29. So a few pictures of what that looks like and what the physical distancing looks like in the classroom. And then we also wanted to share a video for 4th graders for you. So that was a video of a specialist subject, because I think a lot of people wondered like what would be happening, because those spaces are being used for some of the larger classrooms. So the specialist teachers go into the classroom and they're still able to do their work with students. So, and I was able to today observe a music lesson that went very well in the schools. So that's all still happening in the schools. Oops. All right. So. So as Lisa said, that we have shifted from like talking about learning in the pandemic to looking more back at our strategic plan. And as we brought more kids into school, we had to think of we started to think of 3 different things, because we're in April now. So we were thinking about closing out this school year full in person, we're thinking about what we might do for summer learning opportunities for students, and then we're also thinking about reopening schools in September, and really what is that school year going to look at, because we've learned a lot through this pandemic and through this teaching. So what will school look like as we open up in September of 2021? So when we did that, we kind of reconceptualized this graphic that we've had in our past presentations, and we've put the engaged student in the middle, because that is the most important part of our work here in the schools, is really having those students that are engaged and feel safe and supportive. So what we also have are the three surrounding what we kind of call pillars of work that we need to do to make sure that that student's engaged in the school. So we have the safe and supportive learning environments, and boy, do we learn a lot about what that actually means now after teaching in the pandemic. We had a good base and foundation of the work we were doing around social emotional learning, and but I think that after the pandemic, we've learned a lot about helping students with their social emotional skills. Another pillar is the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and again, really working to make sure that everyone is included and able to access both the safe and supportive learning community and our curriculum instruction and assessment. So really working a lot on that this school year. It's been, as you know, through all our school committee presentations, it's kind of a focal point of the work besides all the logistics that we've had through the pandemic. And then finally, we have what we normally think of school is the coherent curriculum instruction and assessment. And we really had to think differently about that as we're closing out this school year. We've done a lot of work leading up to it to say, what were our priority standards for this school year, knowing that we were in a hybrid model and maybe not being able to teach the full complement of standards that we would normally do in a school year. And so coming back, as you know, we had an early release day last week, and we really, at each level, took a look at what were the standards that we have been able to get to, what do we still need to get to, knowing that we have now, starting this week, 9 weeks of school left to work with our students. So we've really prioritized our work. We're really talking about doing a lot of formative assessment to understand where our kids are at in their learning, and we'll be working on that to close out the school year. We still have 2 more early release days. We have one in May and one in June to continue that work and really zero in on our students' needs, and which is going to really help us with our planning. So at this point.
Thank you. The final slide that we have, as Mary spoke about, is the next steps at the May school committee meeting. We will be prepared to speak about how we will be using the ESSER funding. So that's the funding through the federal government, and have been working with our administrators, reflecting on, again, what have we learned through educating during a pandemic, what are the pieces that have been working, what are some things that we need to change, and what are some things that we want to do differently going forward. We will also be looking at summer programming. Mary and Keith have been working with our recreation department at our town level, and Mary was able to write a grant on behalf of the district through the Department of Education. So we did receive that grant that will help us to fund a summer program in collaboration with the rec program. In the slide earlier that Mary had with the engaged student, and really looking at for summertime, having it be engaging, having it be a place where students want to be and engaged in their learning, and really accelerating. We understand that things were difficult during the pandemic, education looked differently, but as we go forward, really looking around the pluses that we have here. What are the strengths of students? What are the assets of students, and how do we continue to add to that? So really looking at finding out where our students are in their learning. And then the second piece is really exciting also is the visioning. Over the last, since really last July, for the most part, we've been talking about a lot of the logistics of educating during a pandemic, and the technical pieces, and one schedule to another schedule, and as Keith said, our mitigation strategies, how do we pull all of those pieces together? We are really looking forward to going, a piece of our strategic plan that we did put on hold during this was looking at the portrait of the graduate. We are finishing up our 3rd year, but we now want to really look and say, where are we for the next 2 years of this strategic plan? And the portrait of a graduate is really an opportunity to engage the community. Again, we did visioning at the beginning of the strategic plan, but through a pandemic, it makes sense to re-engage and then have community conversations and really look at how do we continue to engage the community over the next 2 years of the strategic plan too, to really be part of that process as we move out of this pandemic. And as Mary said, we'll be looking at equity, our social emotional learning for our students, and our academic skills. So those two pieces coming up over the May meeting, and then really looking at the June meeting of sharing what were we able to accomplish during this school year. We'll share that with the school committee and the community, and through the spring into the fall, the visioning of Portrait of a Graduate moving forward as a community for the outcomes that we want for our students in the Danvers Public Schools. Thank you.
Questions? Jeff?
Really just two. So the first is, do we still do the deep cleaning? I thought I read an article in the Times that said that there's been no evidence that COVID can luckily spread by touching. So do we still do the deep cleaning?
It is the topic of the day. There's been many articles that the CDC did just formally recognize that. We are still doing our deep cleaning and are waiting for additional guidance and recommendations from DESE. Again, when these changes get made by the CDC, they typically then get adopted by the Mass Department of Public Health, and then those get adopted by DESE and then down to the town level. So it takes some time to trickle down, but once those new guidances come out, we'll review our procedures for any changes we want to make going forward.
It's only 9 weeks left too, so I'm assuming it's probably by the time it got down to us, it wouldn't save us much money anyway.
But for next year, right, as we look at,
Right.
what we deal with COVID in the fall.
It'd be better to be
things
safe.
alter.
Okay, that's fine. And then the second question was on the formative assessments. So we talked about we're doing more now to kind of understand where we're at. Are there any preliminary findings from those that we've seen so far, since we're all in person now and we've done more? So you mentioned the last 9 weeks and even some of the summer programs. We'll want to focus on some of that catch-up that maybe we didn't get to do. Any early findings on areas that are of particular need for us? Elementary reading, AP students, I mean, does anything sort of pop out right now?
Right, we did collect at the elementary level mid-year data on reading, because we kept reading, and we have assessments along the way in mathematics, and that we did notice in the reading that there are some target areas that we have across the district. And so we have Title I, we reconfigured, every time we bring more kids in, we reconfigure our Title I tutoring, and they get to work with all the students in the schools, because we have a school-wide program now. So so we reconfigure their caseload based on the results of that data. So that we were a little delayed in that to the end of, I think it was mid-February is when we had the data. So that when they came back after this grade 2 and 3 came back to school, we were able to rework them. And then we also had to rework them again. We added a new Title I tutor for Thorpe at this next change that we did on the 29th.
Okay, and so if we see additional areas, those might be targeted programs for the summer. I'm making this up, like 7th grade science or 9th grade math.
Yeah, a big part is definitely literacy, because that really is the basis of all the work that kids need to do. So if you're a strong reader, you're doing well in some of the other subjects as well. So we are definitely building in a strong literacy base and working on some mathematics work as well.
Perfect,
So,
good.
but we'll unveil those plans once we get more details around them.
Okay, thanks. Those are my questions.
Great. Eric?
Really just some comments, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'm sure the parents and students are actually glad to be back full-time for the most part, and probably enjoying seeing their teachers face-to-face. I'm sure the teachers are finding it easier to educate that way, despite the fact that there are still some challenges, no question. So it's nice to see that it appears that we've transitioned relatively smoothly to full-time education again. I am struck by the fact that we received, I want to say 3 or 4 emails in the last week or so with COVID cases throughout the district. So maybe it's not spread in schools, maybe it's the general uptick of variants that we are seeing, but I would encourage everybody, parents, students, just community members, now is not the time to say, well, more and more people are vaccinated, schools are back, we can sort of take the foot off the gas a little bit. If we can just hang on for a few more months until almost everybody's vaccinated who wants to be, and we get through the school year, it'll be a big help. So I hope that people continue to take the corrective steps. From the standpoint of curriculum and moving forward, obviously literacy would be the big concern. I'm glad you're focusing on that. And I think what everybody will have to, and we have to acknowledge, is that for this year, the planning and what could be done was really consumed by trying to get through the year. I'm sure you were looking ahead to next year and what you would like to do, but I would guess the vast majority of day-to-day activity was dealing with making this year work and dealing with those things that came up during the course of the year. So this is, next year will have to be sort of a reset. We'll figure out what we need to do, and I expect that you'll present some plans to us at the May and June meetings as to what that'll look like.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mary Beth?
Just a question on assessments. What is the latest on the MCAS with the
Yeah.
state?
Yes, so the MCAS plans have, came out, and that our window is starting, depends on what level, but starting May 5th is well, maybe May 3rd is the high school. May 5th will be the first day of testing for us at the high school level. And then May 10th opens it up for grades 3 through 5, and then the next week is grades 6 through 8. So we've started to put some dates on a calendar so that we are able to test. Grades 3 through 8, there's just one session in ELA and one session in math. And then for the 5th and 8th graders, they'll have an additional session that will be science. So it's, again, they want us to use that as diagnostic information for us. It's not going to be any results that we normally get with an MCAS. So that's going to be very helpful for us as we begin planning for the next school year. At the high school, it's the normal MCAS testing, although it's on, it's the next generation, so it's on the computer. And they are testing early. We have to do ELA first, so that I think May 10th might be the first day of MCAS testing for the whole group, the large group of kids that we test. There'll be some smaller groups that might start before. We also need to test students remotely, and all they've given us is that that remote students can take it at home. It sounds like it's going to be like the kids will be in their Zoom class like they normally would be, but they would be taking an MCAS assessment that's on a web-based browser. So more details to come with that. I think the commissioner, as Dr. Dana said, that he's holding a meeting on Wednesday, so we'll probably get a few more details from him then. But that's where we stand with the testing. So, but the high school it's just for 10th graders, I should say that as well. There's a competency determination alternative for the junior class that we'll be working through that process, so.
And then just kind of touching upon, you talked about the literacy. Do they still, on the elementary levels, require or suggest, encourage 20 minutes of reading a night at home with the family?
Yes, that's been always been our big thing, is that if anything you can do with your child is to read every night to them, or have them read themselves every single night for at least 20 minutes.
Yeah, I
if not
remember
more.
when my children were down there would be like a reading log. Is that something
Yeah.
that they still
I-
do, or?
Well, it is something that they've given assignments for students to do. I just don't know how, each individual teacher does it their own way of doing it, yes.
Very good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Arthur?
I'm all set, thank you. Wow.
All set as well, just really disappointed that MCAS are happening, I think every school committee in the Commonwealth, every superintendent in the Commonwealth practically has said what a bad idea it is, so I don't understand why the state isn't listening and waiving that requirement, but nothing we can do about that. So that's it. Dr. Dana,
Thank you. Next will be our COVID-19 statistics update with Mr. Taverna.
So as we do each month, I feel like a broken record, but here we go through our mitigation strategies again, but they are that important to us that we want to keep reminding all of the public and all of our students, hand washing, hand sanitizing, wearing your mask, the physical distancing, and staying home when sick. So if we jump into, so we'll go through our kind of monthly statistics again. As we've said before, there was no cases of school-based transmission over the last month, and I think that you'll see us following a similar trend to what you see statewide, with numbers being slightly up and the number of children having COVID being slightly up as well as part of the population. So for the week ending 4/9, oh, no, this is actually the wrong, I'm going to jump, hold on. So you were,
Okay.
I'm reading the chart backwards, okay.
Okay.
So for the week ending 3/11, which is the date with DESE, there was 34 cases in the town, 3 at the elementary level, 0 at the secondary level. The positivity rate was 2.28%, and the number of cases in children under 18 equaled 21% of the cases for the town of Danvers. So the next week, you'll see 36 cases townwide, 1 at the elementary level, 1 at the secondary level, a positivity rate slightly lower at 1.93%, and 33% of the cases in children under the age of 18. The week of March 26th, 46 cases, so again, you'll see these numbers going up. 0 cases in the school-aged population, a 2.09% positivity rate, with 30% of the cases under the age of 18. If we go to the next week, week of 4/2, 49 cases, 0 cases at the elementary level, 2 cases at the secondary level, a positivity rate of 2.93, with 12% of the cases under the age of 18, and 0 school-based transmission. If you looked at the data behind there, the percent of cases under age 18 is down, but the cases in the 25 to 29-year-old and the 30 to 39-year-old age brackets is significantly up that week. So again, following that trend where we're seeing COVID in younger residents at this time. So then for last Friday, 55 cases townwide, 2 at the elementary level, 1 at the secondary level, a positivity rate of 3.82, with 24% of the cases under the age of 18 with no school-based transmission. So you do see an upward trend that models what we're seeing at the state level. I'll say that for this current week that we're in, that will end on Wednesday, we do have 3 cases so far this week. So again, we're hopeful that we stay somewhere in that 1 to 3 case range, going up even maybe to 5 with everybody back in person, but we still see the data as being manageable in the school setting.
Great. The questions, you ready for questions, Keith?
Yep.
Okay. Eric, any questions?
I guess just looking at the numbers, it looks like town-wide the positivity rate has been climbing a little bit. But what you're saying is, despite that, we may have be seeing some cases at the school level, but no in-school spread at this point. So I guess, that's good news. And but to continue, it goes back to what I said earlier. We're not completely out of the woods yet, as long as that positivity rate keeps increasing. So let's just keep doing what we're doing.
And the district did also send home a district-wide communications this morning, reminding everybody if you're not feeling well to stay home, and especially if you've had a COVID test and it's pending,
Yep.
to please make sure that you stay home until those results are out. And I will mention this last slide, we actually just added this on Friday, and we are starting to track the percent of Danvers residents that have been vaccinated. So to date, 46% of Danvers residents are partially or fully vaccinated. So as that number continues to climb, obviously, hopefully, we hope the number
That's a
of
big
cases
number.
decline.
Good.
And that'll be added weekly now to our COVID infographic when we release it.
Do we have numbers as to what percentage of our staff has been vaccinated at this point?
Yep, so we go to the next slide.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you,
sorry.
Mary. Actually just wrote the same note, Eric. I jumped into questions before I got to that. So we say we have about 500 full-time staff. We did a survey and we had 377 out of that 525 reply, but happy to say that we had a total of 358 of those staff report that they've had at least one shot, with an additional staff saying that they had an appointment, but really much better results than we could have even hoped for, I think, from the start. Thankful for our staff and their initiative. We were never able to kind of arrange a private date for them. We were able to have some people go to Amesbury as part of a regional collaborative, but really all of our staff went out of their way to make sure they could get vaccinated as fast as they could, and we're thankful for that and for the success rate which we've had.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Erica?
When you talked earlier about where they're a little bit closer in the classroom, there's more contact tracing. So if a child is positive, or if a child's positive with COVID, and the child's on the elementary but has siblings on the middle school and high school, do they all have to quarantine, or is it just the elementary
So if
child?
I, Keith, if I'm positive as Keith, and yes, I have a brother at home, yes, my brother or my sister would have to quarantine because most likely, I mean, they would go through the contact tracing process, but living in the same household, they most likely would be a close contact. The other students at that level, so if I'm in high school and my brother's in middle school, the middle school student, my brother has to quarantine, but not people that were sitting around my brother unless he tests positive himself. They would be considered contacts of a contact, which do not count towards quarantine. They do not need to quarantine.
So when there is a positive case in town, the health department are they the ones that are notified, and then are they the ones that notify the close contacts, or who notifies the close contacts in the schools?
It's a collaborative effort, but mostly our nurses take the lead on that.
The
So
school nurses?
I would say the way that the communication, the way the state systems go, is parents have been great with sharing that information with us before it gets to the Board of Health. So often we're notifying them and our nurses are doing the contact tracing for the school setting in conjunction with administration.
Very good, thank you, that's all I have.
Great, Arthur?
Obviously, the numbers look really good. 93% of the staff is at least partially vaccinated. The only numbers that really mean much to me in our context, which is what we're doing with the kids, is that we continue to have zero in-school transmission. It's always been that way. It continues to be that way. And while maybe the positivity rate is increasing slightly, I think the more important big picture number that isn't here, obviously, is that deaths are literally cratering as far as the statistics. I mean, I think we're now at 7 or 8 per day, and that's because all of the people, the vast majority of people 65 and up have been vaccinated, and that's where most of the deaths were occurring. So as far as what we're doing, I think we're in really good shape, and we just have to keep going, and I think it looks good as far as going forward. So thanks.
Jeff?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that the 46% number of Danvers residents who are vaccinated. I mean, you should also look at the percentage that are eligible, because we don't have a vaccine for, children 15 and under. So what is the population that's actually eligible? That's probably 50, 60% at least of people who are eligible in Danvers, which is terrific. So that's another encouraging thing. Now, of course, as the school department, we say we'd love to have at least the Pfizer, for the 12 to 15-year-olds get approved, so that could, help a little bit. But that's a great number, and I'm sure, we had the Department of Public Health here. It looks encouraging, right? So for us going forward, so that's terrific. Thanks.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Jeff, because 18 to 55 are not even eligible yet unless there's a, comorbid condition. Right. So I think that's a really big number, 46%. I think it's great. Hopefully we'll continue. I'm just curious to see over the next couple of days if we see any kind of bump due to the Easter holiday, where people tend to gather even though, they're advised not to. I would think that would be about, isn't it around 7 days or so when
A little bit quicker now, but yes.
Okay, good. So maybe we've reached that milestone, and it's not an issue, which is great. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. So we'll finish up this portion of the agenda with our facilities update around Smith Elementary School.
So I'm actually going to just add in 2 other items before we dive into Smith School. First, we just wanted to touch base quickly on technology security. So obviously, many people saw the Haverhill Public Schools article from last week where they had to close due to a malware attack. And while anything is always possible, we have taken proactive steps in conjunction with our town technology team and the school department technology team. And we do have multiple firewalls in place and different filters that would hopefully help prevent that. And if it did not, we do back up our servers on a nightly basis that we would be able to revert to an old version and have some data loss, but have that be minimized and hopefully return us to normal operations quickly. So we just wanted to share that with the community. While it's never foolproof, I think we do have some good steps in place. The second item is Chromebooks. Happy to report that we have a lot of Chromebooks being delivered tomorrow to the district. So FedEx is scheduled to deliver Chromebooks We have a distribution plan in place that will begin on May 3rd for our grades 9 through 11 students. A communication will go home tomorrow morning to high school families to ask them to begin to purchase their Chromebook insurance. That policy will carry them from essentially May 1st through the end of the next academic year, so through June 30th of the following year. So it is a little bit more expensive, but we are going to do a 16-month policy or so to start off when we hand out the new Chromebooks. So those will be in place by the time we start MCAS, and so we look forward to getting those into students' hands. They've been long awaited. So then jumping to the Smith School, we're very excited to be getting closer to getting into the new building. We were able to bring faculty and staff through tours this afternoon, actually right before this meeting, to see their eyes and see them snapping pictures, and the excitement was really nice to see. This picture here that we have on the screen, this is from one of our social media posts, is one of our collaboration zones at the end of the hallway. So this zone here will be large enough with enough seating that an entire class could come out into the hallway to do a group presentation with technology behind them. So there's 2 of these zones, one in the K-2 wing and one in the 3-5 wing of the building. This next picture is a picture of the cafeteria, looking from the stage that's shared between the gym and the caf, looking back at the serving lines. So that's where the kids will get to eat their lunch every day. Sorry. This is a picture of the learning stairs. So if you look at the right-hand side, that will have a nice finish on it that kids will be able to sit on and, again, have an entire class sit there and then have a presenter in the library and then kind of looking down that direction. You're looking up towards the main entrance. At the top left of those stairs is the music room, and then the art room then leads back to the main doors of the high school. That's on the bottom level of the K-2 wing, looking up. And I lagged one more.
Is there one more? I thought that was, oh, there is.
And then this is a picture of the new rock wall, climbing wall inside the gymnasium. So we're really excited to have the project coming along and being on schedule. We're going to talk with faculty tomorrow about packing up to move over. So that's, again, a sign that it's getting real. We were able to bring some members of the school committee through earlier in March, and are happy to set up times for the other members if they're interested.
Great.
Thank you.
Questions for Keith? Mary Beth?
No questions. I did do a tour with Keith back in March. It's a beautiful building. It's wonderful. So great job to everyone that's been working on it. It's awesome. So, thank you. That's it.
Arthur?
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I did request the tour and then couldn't go. So, so hopefully you'll let me try that again sometime.
We won't hold it against you.
Thanks.
Jeff?
No questions, thanks.
Arthur? Sorry, Eric.
That's okay. It's looking good, and I can't wait to see it too. I'm looking forward to seeing it as it comes along, but that so far looks great.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Being the representative on the school building committee, I've been able to see this, since day one, pretty closely. And what amazes me is, looking at the drawings that they did originally, and then looking at the actual space and how close they look. You would think there'd be changes and modifications along the way, but it's going to be an awesome space. And having that whole open area in the front for the community to be able to use for a variety of activities is great as well. So good job staying on track of all that, Keith. And my only question on the Chromebooks, you said that the freshmen through juniors will be getting their Chromebooks this May. Will they be able to keep them through the summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's the
Great.
intention. That's why we're going to collect the insurance policy that will cover us throughout the summer.
Because I know there's that hassle of turning them in and getting them back, so being able to keep them, I think, is great. All right, thank you. So we will move on to unfinished business.
Thank you. This afternoon, we have 2 items for our program of studies for our secondary schools. So the first one, the Richmond Middle School Program of Studies for a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the second reading for middle school studies? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the second reading to pass the middle school program of studies, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion passes.
Thank you. Our second one, the superintendent recommends the Danvers High School Program of Studies for a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
All right, you have a motion and a second. How about discussion on the high school program of studies? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? So the high school program of study passes as well. Cruising along here. Moving on to new business.
Thank you. This afternoon, we have two items. Our first one is our 2021-2022 school calendar early release days. The superintendent recommends the approval of the 2021-22 school year school calendar early release days for a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Anything you want to talk about regarding the calendar?
Thank you, yes. We did bring this to the policy subcommittee a month ago to review this and have reviewed it with our Teachers Association, our other three unions, and looking at the calendar. So there are a couple highlights I do want to present to the school committee community this afternoon. The first one is that we would start school on Thursday, September 9th. That would be after Labor Day, and we would be looking at the Thursday, as it is Rosh Hashanah would be the first day of school. So we did not want that to have to be a choice for families and students on the first day of school. With that, we then look at the calendar, and moving through the calendar, we would have also a change that Good Friday would no longer be a full day of not being in school. And the last change in looking at holidays would be Juneteenth. We did add that to this year's calendar. It is now a holiday at the state level. So we have added that to the school calendar, and that would be on June 20th. You'll also see in the calendars, if we get to the end of the calendar, at the moment, the DESE commissioner has not given us word of whether you could use a remote day as we did this year for the snow days. So we do have a calendar at the moment that would show the 5 possible snow days at the end of the school calendar.
Anything else? Dr. Damon?
No, those are the highlights.
All right. Arthur, as the policy committee member, do you want to discuss anything we talked about then?
Yeah, I mean, basically, as Lisa says, I mean, I think both members of the policy subcommittee aren't necessarily, or don't necessarily think we should have the religious holidays as days off. And I think that is part of the thinking with the Good Friday, although it's been replaced really by the Juneteenth holiday. But as far as Rosh Hashanah on the first day of school, we don't want people to have to make the choice of whether or not to keep their kids home on the first day of school for legitimate reasons if they celebrate Rosh Hashanah. So I think it made a lot of sense for this year to have that not be the first day of school. And that's why we did what we did, I think. And I think that's a good thing. So other than that, the Juneteenth holiday is kind of schedule-wise kind of strange because it kind of is the end of school. So the holiday exists, and then we kind of sort of have to come back, but not very long, like a day. And so Juneteenth may be the end of school for a lot of people, but it's just the way that it falls. Obviously, if we have snow days, it'll be different. And so it's a little awkward, I think, but it is what it is. So other than that, I think it's pretty consistent with what our calendars have been in previous years. So.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, so Juneteenth this year is going to be on a Monday again for this school calendar, not this next year, right?
Friday.
It's on a Friday.
It's a
So
Friday.
if it falls on a Saturday, Friday's the holiday, and then next school year, so for 2022, it falls on a Sunday, so then we have a Monday holiday.
Gotcha. Okay, so I understand what you're saying, Arthur, about it. You're kind of overlapping and then the extra day. So, all right, that's fine. I mean, it's a good calendar. We've got the days. It would be nice, given the remote that we've had this year, if the commissioner could see fit for our snow days to follow in that model. I will certainly be an advocate for it, but no, otherwise, no other questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Should I call you Jeff this time, Eric?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I will defer to the wisdom of the policy committee on the calendar. It looks good. There don't seem to be too many changes in terms of overall days or overall early release days, et cetera. So I'm content with the calendar. Thank you.
Great. Mary Beth?
All set, thank you.
Great. And then the only thing I'll add that Arthur touched on is because Rosh Hashanah fell on what would traditionally be our first day of school, that's why the decision was made. But that'll be looked at on an annual basis. So if it's not the first day of school, it is unlikely that there'll be a day off.
But actually, so if folks do celebrate those religious holidays and they do not, come to school, it's not held against them for that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And actually, so just tests on those types of holidays, is that discouraged? Or if they are given, do teachers allow for makeup?
It is discouraged. We do put that information out, and we continue to remind all of our faculty and to share as we continue to look at our school calendar for that reminder. Yes.
Thank you.
Great. All right, so we had a motion and a second in discussion. So now we need a vote. All those in favor of approving the calendar for the first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That passes.
Thank you. Our second item under new business is fundraising. The superintendent recommends the approval of the fundraising events through April 12th that are in your packet.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on fundraising? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the fundraising, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Fundraising passes.
Thank you. The last part was just a placeholder if we had any field trips, and that is not taking place at the moment. So we're ready to go on to order of business.
All right, which is you, communications.
Thank you, Communications, for our North Shore Education Consortium. We always keep the link to their website, and we are also working on budget, and we'll be able to bring that to school committee very shortly.
Great. Deep, Mary Beth?
Our monthly meeting is this coming Wednesday, virtually again. We will be discussing our upcoming Breakfast of Champions, where we'll be honoring our retirees and local businesses that have supported HEAP over the year. And we'll also be talking about potential fundraiser for the fall. So that's it for DEEP. Thank you.
Danvers Cares, Jeff?
So the big thing this week is Danvers Cares director interviews are this week. Next step is going to be the finalist interviews, and we hope to be able to announce a new director at the May meeting.
Excellent. CPAC, Dr. Dana?
Thank you. In March, CPAC hosted a workshop delivered by the Federation for Children with Special Needs on transition planning. It was held remotely and was fairly well attended. Leslie was the presenter, and she is always well received. For April's Autism Awareness and Accepting Differences Month, CPAC worked with Whitney McNeely in central office to post on the district's social media, the town's social media, as well as CPAC's social media, with pictures sent in by parents of children representing acceptance, as well as resources and books on the subject of autism and accepting differences. On May 20th, CPAC will host a presentation by our technology director, Jim Sullivan, on internet safety for parents. This will also, at this meeting, we will also have the election of CPAC officers for the coming school year.
Great. Going on with CPAC. Policy, Arthur?
I think we've already talked about it.
We have, and we have another meeting set for the end of April. Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, Eric?
Yeah, let me back up and do legislation too.
Oh, did I miss that?
Which we raced right by.
You think you're getting rid of me, huh?
So I got a text from Representative Kearns. The House and Senate Ways and Means Committee have reached a local aid agreement for fiscal year 2022 budget. This agreement provides certainty and predictability for our cities and towns. Local aid agreement includes the following. Funds for Chapter 70 at its highest level ever at $5.503 billion, an increase of $219.6 million over last fiscal year, and 1/6 implementation of SOA funds. Creates a $40 million enrollment reserve fund targeted to stabilize school districts adversely impacted by the pandemic. Funds unrestricted general government aid, $1.16 billion, an increase of $39.5 million over fiscal year 2021. And so it's very positive from an education standpoint, and I think it's a sign that this is, the projection is that next year is going to be a good year economically and will allow us to do some things from a statewide level. So that's the update on legislation.
Mr. Crane, if I could just real quick, just
Sure,
to add to that, just part of the state dialogue right now that's happening at the superintendent's level is also making sure that the governor and the legislature take into account reduced enrollments for this year and the implications of that when it comes to the funding model. So there has been dollars allocated to the Student Opportunity Act, but oftentimes some of that was offset by declines in enrollment. And most districts like ourselves expect that enrollment to rebound next year, which will make the effective dollar amount of some of those increases in Student Opportunity Act funding not be as they may appear from the outside.
Sure.
So we just want to make sure that that dialogue is recognized.
Great,
as
thank
part
you,
of the
Kate.
ongoing.
Appreciate that. Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. So we had a regular meeting a couple of weeks ago, which I attended, and it's by Zoom. But essentially, for our part, I updated the committee as to what we're doing in terms of our equity issues. We talked a little bit about the recent report that we had reported on at our last meeting. And they're very supportive of what we're trying to do, of course. And then we had a meeting of the subcommittee, of the education subcommittee last week. I think it was Friday, was it? Friday morning again by Zoom. And I would say that Max Leet and Lil Monterecki presented, and they were quite impressive. They're both members, you know Max, who is our student representative here, and has done such a nice job leading that group, and Lil has been assisting him, and the two of them are just doing a fine job, and I came away feeling that those members of the inclusion committee were extraordinarily impressed with the work that they're doing, extraordinarily supportive of them, willing to help out in any way they can, and generally, I think the inclusion committee appreciates the efforts that we're trying and stands willing to help us in any way they can with ideas, with thoughts. And, you know, there are some educators like Charles Desmond on that committee who understand both the challenges and the opportunities. So we did talk about also ways to work on increasing the diversity of our staff. And that's an ongoing effort I know that the whole administrative team is working on. It has its own challenges in terms of, I think the way I put it is that diversity sort of breeds diversity. And as we expand the diversity in the community and in the schools and among our staff, we'll see an increased ability to diversify. So I think it's just something we have to continue working on. Lisa, I don't know if you want to comment on those efforts at all? Or?
For the hiring?
For the hiring, yes, exactly.
Yes, we continue to work. The state also has an initiative, so working through the state, looking at different opportunities, gathering more information, and using our resources through School Spring to continue to be able to have, as you said, a more diverse teaching faculty members here. Keith or Mary to add to that? I think that's. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was Charles who pointed out that students tend to do better the more that they see teachers who look like them, and will feel more included when will generally perform better. So it's an initiative along with our many initiatives that we can't take our eye off of. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Before we move on to minutes, I will just add that I will be at the final wellness meeting for the year, coming up on Thursday. And with that, just a reminder for the remaining committee members that we don't have the wellness committee on here, on a regular basis, but someone will need to fill that role. So Eric, we'll move to you for minutes.
I move, Mr. Chairman, that we approve and release the minutes from the March 8th, 2021 regular and the March 22nd, 2001 special meeting, and to approve and not release the minutes of the March 8th, 2021 and March 22nd, 2021 executive sessions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The minutes pass. We'll move to Keith for budget and donations.
For budget, you have your monthly budget report for March. We do remain on budget for the year. As we get into the April budget reports and on, you will start to see some variances appear in the budget, especially in this COVID year, as we looked at alternative funding sources and looked at daily substitutes not coming in, but having spot substitutes, you'll see some variances. But at the end of the day, we are well within our means to finish off the year balanced. Also would like to recognize 2 donations. One is Myrna Fear, who donated clothing to our theater department. So thank you to her. And then Ocean State Job Lots was able to donate 2 pallets of hand sanitizer, wipes, and face shields. So thank you to them for their community support.
Any questions for Keith regarding the budget? All right, stick with you, Keith, then for personnel.
Personnel report for the month of March. Again, various leaves of absences for employees that are going out, and mainly athletic appointments for coaches for the fall 2 season, which still confuses me in spring, and spring as we get into it.
You're not alone with the confusion. Any questions for Keith regarding personnel? All right, wow, we're doing this in record time. All right, so that is the end of what we have on our agenda here. I want to remind everyone that your next school committee meeting is on May 10th. And prior to that is the election on May 4th. So I want to encourage everyone to get out and vote. That's how the people end up in these seats, and it's important to get the people you want there. So please do that. Other than that,
Finance Committee tonight at 7 for our
Finance,
budget hearing.
yes. So
You're not off the hook yet, Dave.
Finance Committee. So if you want to tune in for that, we'll be there at 7.
Did you guys get gifts?
You did. Another year, you'll get one.
You missed the presentation out there.
I-
It was touching, really. I think
I'm going to resign now if I can get a gift.
Sorry, they're
Have to
gone.
do the whole term to get the gift.
Ah, shoot.
So with that, I would be looking for my favorite motion.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion on adjourning? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. The meeting is adjourned. Good evening / good night, Danvers.